The morning Adaeze left, the harmattan was still in the air. That dry, particled wind that coated everything in pale dust and made the world look like it was trying to forget itself. Her friend Blessing had called 3 weeks before with the number. A family in Dubai, 2 children, good people, good salary. They want someone who can start by January. Adenze had sat with the number for 4 days before she dialed it. She had prayed over it. She had looked at Chisom sleeping, her daughter's small chest rising and falling, one hand curled beneath her cheek, and she had told herself, this is not abandonment. This is the other kind of love, the kind that costs you. Now it was January and the taxi was outside. Chisom was 6, old enough to understand going, but too young to understand why. And she stood in the doorway of their single room in her yellow dress, the one with the white collar that Adenze had ironed twice, holding the hem of it in both fists. "Come here," Adenze said, and she crouched down to her daughter's level, her bag already at the door, her mother hovering somewhere behind them both. "Why can't I come?" Chisom asked. Not crying yet. Worse, not crying yet. "Because school is here, and school is important." "I don't want school, I want you." Adenze pulled her close. She pressed her lips to the top of her daughter's head and stayed there, breathing her in, shea butter and sleep, and something she could not name, something that was simply Chisom, irreducible, impossible to hold enough of. She felt the small hands grip the back of her blouse and tighten. "Listen to me," she murmured into her daughter's hair. "Every night before you sleep, I want you to look at the window. You see the moon? I will be looking at the same moon. That means we are not really far. You hear me?" Chisom nodded against her shoulder. "I'm going to build us a house, a real one, with your own room, with a window so big you can see the whole street." She pulled back, held the girl's face in both hands, thumbed away the tear that had finally quietly fallen. "Will you be my good girl while Mama walks?" "Yes," Chisom whispered. The taxi honked. Adenze stood. She kissed her mother on the cheek, picked up her bag, and walked to the car without looking back, because she had learned, somewhere in the preceding sleepless weeks, that if she looked back, she would not go, and they needed her to go. She looked out the rear window once, just once. Chisom had come to the edge of the compound, still holding her dress, still watching. Adenze raised her hand. Chisom raised hers. The taxi turned the corner, and that was that. Dubai was not what she had imagined. It was larger and colder indoors and lonelier in ways she hadn't prepared for, though she was not sure you could prepare for that kind of loneliness, the kind that lived inside comfort, inside a clean room and a fair salary, and a family who said please and thank you and still did not know your middle name. The Al-Rashidi house was big and quiet. She cared for 2 children, a toddler and a boy of 4, and she was good at it. She was patient and warm, and she knew how to make the nights manageable. What nobody saw was that she cared for those children with a love slightly borrowed, the overflow of something already directed elsewhere, across a distance of 4,000 kilometers, toward a girl in a yellow dress. She had 15 minutes each morning. She had learned to use them precisely. She would lock herself in the small bathroom beside the laundry room and sit on the edge of the tub and call home. Her mother always answered warmly. Chisom always asked the same question. "When are you coming back, Mommy?" And Adenze always gave the same answer, the only one she could afford. "Soon, my love, very soon." She asked about the house every week, and every week her mother delivered progress. The blocks had arrived, the foreman was reliable, the foundation was taking shape. Once, her mother sent photographs, a structure rising from red Anambra earth, walls climbing toward a sky that looked exactly like the one she remembered. Adenze had printed one of those photographs and kept it in her bedside drawer, beneath her Bible. On the worst nights, when the loneliness settled like weather, she would take it out and look at it. "I am not just walking," she would remind herself. "I am building something." She sent 60,000 for school fees every month, 80,000 for the construction, 30 for food and upkeep. She tracked every transfer in a small notebook, a habit her father had taught her before he died. Write it down, Adaeze. What is not written did not happen. She had filled nearly half the notebook by the time August came. Her last call before flying home, she told Chisom to look for a gift in her bag. What kind of gift? Chisom asked, suddenly very awake. The kind you'll have to wait to see. She could hear her daughter grinning through the phone. On the plane, somewhere above the clouds between Dubai and Lagos, Adaeze finally let herself imagine it. The house, the room, Chisom at that window. 2 years of work made real in concrete and walls and a door with their name on it. She folded the imagining carefully, the way you fold something you intend to keep, and held it for the rest of the flight. Well, as always, do tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I love to see how far these amazing stories travel. Enjoy. She came back in August with a bag full of gifts, a bag that hadn't been right since the second year, and a heart loud with plans. Her mother met her at the motor park with Chisom, who was now 8 and startlingly taller, her hair in 2 neat puffs, her expression carrying a careful dignity that collapsed entirely the moment she saw her mother step off the bus. "Mommy!" Adaeze dropped her bag on the dusty ground and caught her daughter mid-run. She lifted her, though Chisom was almost too big for it, and held her with everything she had. 2 years of everything compressed into this. She felt the small arms lock around her neck and squeeze, and she thought, there it is. There is the whole reason. That first night was warm and loud and ordinary in the best way. Her mother's kitchen, the smell of jollof and crayfish, Chisom talking without pausing for breath about school and her friend Tochoku, and a stray cat that had wandered into the compound in March and wandered out again in June, as if it had somewhere better to be. Adaeze laughed until her chest hurt. She had forgotten what it felt like to laugh without monitoring the sound of it. The next morning, she asked to see the house. Her mother set down her tea. Something crossed her face. Not guilt quite, but the shadow of it, the shape guilt leaves before it fully arrives. "Rest first, you just got in." "I rested on the plane, Mama. I want to see it." Adaeze, "I want to see it." She hired a bike and went alone. She had the coordinates saved on her phone, the same ones her mother had sent along with the photographs. She found the plot without trouble. The land was real. She stood on it and felt the red earth under her sandals and knew it was hers. But there were no walls, no foundation, no sign that anyone had ever mixed cement here or unloaded blocks or measured anything. There was only a flat, weeded plot with a rusted iron rod jutting from the earth at one corner, planted there at some point and then forgotten. She stood in the middle of it for a long time. The sun was high and indifferent. She called her mother. "Mama, I'm at the plot." Silence. "There's nothing here." "Come home," her mother said, her voice thin. "Please come home." Her mother was sitting in the parlor when she arrived, hands folded in her lap, Chisom already sent to a neighbor's, which told Adaeze that her mother had been preparing for this, that some part of her always knew this day would come. The acknowledgement made something cold move through her chest. She sat down. She kept her voice steady, because steadiness was the only way she would get through it. "Where did the building money go, Mama?" What came out, slowly, in pieces, was this. Prophet Emmanuel's ministry in Onitsha, Sister Ngozi's prayer cooperative, a healing crusade in Akwa, and another in Enugu. Every month a new vessel, a new word from God. Sow a seed for your daughter. She will be protected, she will prosper, she will come home safely. "I was praying for you," her mother said, and the tears came, real tears, which was almost the worst part, because they were real, and there was no cruelty in her mother's face, only belief, the kind that had somehow made the line feel like love. "Every time I gave it for you." Adaeze said nothing. "The school fees," she said finally. The pause that followed answered the question before the words. Chisom had been sent home 3 times. The teachers were patient. The fees had come eventually. Adese stood and walked to the window. The compound outside was bright and unchanged. The same guava tree, the same cracked wall her father had always meant to fix. She had sent money for that wall too, she realized. Probably. I printed one of those photographs, the ones you sent me, of the house going up. I kept it in my Bible, Mama. I looked at it when things were hard. She turned. Where did you find them? I don't. She held up her hand. I don't want to know. She stood there for a moment, in the particular silence of a room where something irreversible has just been said. Then she picked up her bag. I need a few days. She booked an Airbnb across town, small, clean, 2 beds, and she collected Chisom from the neighbors without explanation and took her there. For 4 days, it was only the 2 of them. They slept in the same bed and ate suya on the balcony in the evenings, watching the street below go about its business. Chisom told her about Mr. Obina, who drew on the board and made everyone laugh, about the composition she had written that won 2nd place, and a stray cat that had wandered into the compound in March and wandered out again in June as if it had somewhere better to be. Adese laughed until her chest hurt. She had forgotten what it felt like to laugh without monitoring the sound of it. On the 3rd night, Chisom fell asleep in the middle of a sentence. Adese lay in the dark beside her, listening to her breathe, and did not sleep for a long time. She thought about her mother now, not with anger, but with the exhausted, complicated tenderness of someone who loves a person they cannot quite understand. She thought about the photographs, the weekly calls, all those mornings on the bathroom tub, the notebook with its careful columns of figures. She thought about the iron rod in the empty plot standing in the weeds like a monument to nothing. And then, quietly, she began to think about what came next. On the 5th day, she went back. Her mother was in the kitchen, moving slowly, as if the house itself had grown heavier. She looked up when she came in. She did not speak. Adese sat at the table. I'm not ready to forgive you today. I need you to know that. I won't pretend I am. She paused, choosing each word carefully. But I will, because you are my mother, and because I know you believed you are helping me. I know that. She looked at her hands. I just need you to carry what it cost. Don't put it down, Mama. Chisom was sent home from school. I kept a photograph of a house that didn't exist. Carry that. Her mother pressed her hand to her mouth. She nodded. I'm going back to Dubai, Adese continued. I already called the agency. But this time, I will pay Chisom's school fees directly to the school. I will call them myself, set everything up myself. You won't touch that money. She said it without cruelty, simply as fact. And the house, I'll save for it on my own. It will take longer, but when those walls go up, I will have watched every single block laid. Nobody will show me photographs. I will be there. Her mother wiped her eyes. Adese, I know, Mama. She stood. I know. She called into the back of the house. Chisom, come and let's go and buy groundnut before the market closes. The thunder of small feet. Chisom appeared in the doorway, sandals half on, already grinning. Can we get chin-chin too? Don't push your luck. Mommy? Fine, chin-chin too. Chisom grabbed her hand and pulled, already moving towards the door and the street and the afternoon, unbothered and whole, the way children are when they are loved and do not yet know how much that love has cost. Adese let herself be pulled. She looked back once at her mother, still sitting at the table, smaller somehow than she had ever seemed before. I'll call you when I land, Adese said, and she meant it. The second departure was quieter than the first. There was no harmattan this time. It was September, and the air was thick and warm and smelled like rain that hadn't fallen yet. Chisom was 9 now, and she understood more, which made it easier in some ways and harder in others. She did not ask, why can't I come? She stood at the compound gate with her arms folded across her chest, chin lifted, trying very hard to look like someone who was not about to cry. You're doing the face, Adiaze said. What face? The face where you pretend you're fine. Chisom's chin wobbled just slightly. I learnt it from you. Adiaze laughed. A real one startled out of her and pulled her daughter close one more time. 5 years, she murmured into her hair. That's all. And I will call you every single day, not just weekends, every day. Promise? On my life. She kept the promise. Every evening Dubai time, every night Nigeria time, she called. She heard about Mr. Obina retiring and the new teacher who was strict but fair. She heard about Chisom's first quiz bowl trophy, her first argument with Tochukwu, their making up, the cat that returned to the compound as if it had never left. She paid the school fees directly. She had set it up before she boarded the plane, called the school buster herself, arranged everything so that money traveled from her hand to the school's account with no stops in between. For her mother, she sent upkeep every month, enough for food, for the compound's maintenance, for whatever her body needed as it got older. She sent it without conditions and without coldness. She had decided that much on the balcony in the Airbnb, watching Chisom eat suya. Withholding from her mother would not rebuild the walls that were never built. It would only add one more absence to a life that had already known too many. She did not send building money. That she kept. She opened a second notebook. The first one, the one her father had taught her to keep, was full now. Its columns a record of everything that had gone out and not returned. She kept it, evidence maybe, or just history. The second notebook was different. The second notebook was architecture. She researched everything: foundation cost, roofing materials, the price of tiles per square meter, the going rates for reliable contractors in Anambra. She joined an online forum of Nigerians in the diaspora building homes. She asked questions without embarrassment. She made mistakes on paper so she would not make them in concrete. She worked. She saved. She sent you some novels she thought she would love and was right about half of them. She listened to her mother's voice on the phone grow gradually softer over the years. Not the warmth. The warmth had always been there, but something else, something underneath, a subsidence, as though something her mother had been standing on very firmly was slowly, quietly giving way. She did not push. She waited. 5 years later, she landed at Mutala Muhammad in Lagos on a Thursday afternoon. And this time, she was not carrying plans. She was carrying the finished versions of them. Chisom was 14 and tall, impossibly tall, with her grandmother's cheap bones and her father's old stubbornness and something entirely her own that Adiaze could not have predicted and loved beyond measurement. She was standing at arrivals with a handmade sign that read, "Welcome, Mommy, finally," in letters that got progressively larger as space ran out. Adiaze walked through the gate and stopped when she saw it. She put her hand over her mouth. Chisom lowered the sign, suddenly self-conscious. "Too much?" "Come here," Adiaze said, and her voice was not quite steady. "Come here right now." The contractor broke ground within 2 weeks. Adiaze was there for every stage of it. She drove out to the plot each morning in the second-hand Camry she had bought the first week back, parking on the Red Dirt Road and walking the site with the foreman, asking questions, checking measurements, making decisions. She had opinions on windows. She had strong opinions about the kitchen. She had chosen the floor tiles from a sample catalogue in Dubai 18 months ago and had been looking at the photograph of them ever since. Her mother came once, early on, and stood at the edge of the plot watching the foundation being laid. She did not say anything for a long time. Adiaze stood beside her and let the silence be what it was. "It's really happening," her mother said finally. "Yes, Mama." "I should have..." She stopped, started again. "It should have happened 8 years ago. Because of me, it didn't. It's happening now," Adiaze said, simply, finally. Within a year, the house was done. It was not large by any measure that mattered to strangers, but it was solid and clean and entirely theirs. Cream walls, burnt orange roof tiles, a wide veranda that caught the evening breeze, and inside, a room with a window so large you could see the whole street from it. Chisom stood in that room the first night and didn't say anything. She just looked out the window for a long time. Then she turned around. "You told me about this window when I was 6, the morning you left." Adiaze leaned against the doorframe. "I remember. You actually did it. Did you think I wouldn't?" Chisom considered this with the infuriating thoughtfulness of a teenager. She said, "I believed you. I just didn't know how."
The hotel had started as a thought, then a spreadsheet, then a conversation with a woman from the diaspora forum who had done something similar in Enugu. 6 rooms, a small courtyard, a breakfast menu that Adiaze designed herself, with considerable input from Chisom, who had developed strong views about Akara. It sat 2 streets from the main road. Not glamorous, not yet, but clean and warm and run with the same methodical care that had filled 2 notebooks over 5 years. She called it Nwamo, my child. People asked about the name and she always just smiled. The apology came on a Sunday. They had been to church together, the small local one, not the kind with the prophet and the crusades and the seed offerings, just a quiet service with familiar hymns. Afterward, they sat on the veranda with tea. Chisom inside doing homework with dedication that appeared and vanished unpredictably, and Adiaze's mother set down her cup and folded her hands in her lap in the way that meant she had been preparing something. "I have been thinking," she began, "about what I did with your money." Adiaze waited. "I have been thinking about it for 5 years. I told myself for a long time that God had directed me, that the pastors were vessels." She paused. Her voice was careful, as though she was handling something that could break. "But I have been watching these years, watching those same men, seeing what they drive, seeing how they speak to women like me, women who are afraid, women who love their children so much they will give anything if someone tells them it will protect them." She shook her head slowly. "They knew what I was. They knew exactly what I was." Adiaze said nothing. She held her tea. "I was not a wicked woman," her mother said, "but I was a foolish one. And my foolishness cost you things I cannot give back." Her voice broke just at the edge. Chisom being sent home from school, you keeping a photograph of a house that wasn't there, sitting in that bathroom. She paused, pressed her lips together. "You told me to carry it. I have been carrying it. I want you to know that." The veranda was quiet. A weaver bird was doing something industrious in the neem tree at the edge of the compound. Adiaze set down her tea. She reached across and covered her mother's folded hands with her own. "I know you are afraid," she said. "I know you loved me in the only way you knew that season." She squeezed the hands gently. "And I forgave you a long time ago, Mama. Not at once. A little every day, like you save money. Until one morning you check, and there's enough." Her mother's shoulders dropped, a release of something that had been held for far too long. Adiaze continued, "I just need you to know yourself now, to see what they did, so it doesn't happen again. Not to you, not to another woman sitting in a church somewhere who is scared and loves her children." Her mother nodded quietly. She was crying quietly, without drama. "I see it now," she said. "I see it clearly now. I don't know how I didn't before." "Because they were careful," Adiaze said. "That's how they stay fed." They sat together in the evening light, the house behind them solid and real and paid for. The hotel 2 streets away already booked for the coming weekend. Chisam's voice drifting out through the window, arguing cheerfully with a mathematics problem. Adiaze's mother looked around slowly, at all of it. "You built this," she said. "You built all of this." Adiaze picked her tea back up. "We built it," she said. "You kept her alive and in school while I was gone. You weren't nothing, Mama. You just got lost for a while." Her mother laughed, a wet, undignified laugh, and wiped her face with the edge of her wrapper. From inside the house, Chisom shouted, "Mommy, can I have the last chin-chin? Did you finish your homework?" A pause. "Most of it." "Then no." "Grandma, can you tell her? Don't bring me into this," her grandmother called back and laughed again, and this time it came out clean. The evening settled around them warm and unhurried and ordinary, the way the best things finally are.
If you had been in Adaize's situation, what would you have done? Do you think she was too patient with her mom? Don't forget to share, subscribe and comment. See you guys on the next one.